AMD stock has had an amazing few months. The stock is up over 25% in the past month and over 140% in the past year, thanks to the excitement for the MI300X, its AI chip, which is set to grab market share from Nvidia. Well, AMD is scheduled to report earnings on Tuesday after the market closes. Now it's time to see if this excitement is pure speculation or will its results show that this semiconductor giant deserves its forward PE ratio of over 35. And in today's episode, I want to do the following. Take a closer look at what to expect from earnings. First, we're going to look at revenue and earnings per share expectations from the company and analysts. Then I want to take a closer look at a market overview of where there are strengths and weaknesses. Luckily, Intel just reported earnings and we can kind of get some insight there. Next, I want to take a closer look at what to expect from the MI300. And finally, and more importantly, the upcoming guidance for the year and quarter. My name is Jose Najarro, and I spent way too much time reading about semiconductors. I have created the #1 semiconductor podcast for investors. So let's get started. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode. All right, so first, before we get started, I want to take a closer look at Intel. Intel recently reported earnings on Thursday after the market closed, and unfortunately, the stock did not like the results. We can see the stock dropped over 10% after reporting earnings. So some investors might actually be worried, hey, will AMD follow suit? As we took a closer look at the intro, the stock has done amazing in the past 30 days, especially in the past, since year to date, right? Since January started, we're only on January 28th, the stock is up over 27%. So I do believe an important thing for investors to know is what is Wall Street expecting in forms of earnings per share and revenue for this quarter. So earnings per share is expected to be 77 cents, and that would be up a nice amount, as same time last year it was actually 67 cents. More importantly, they do expect revenue to be roughly $6.1 billion, where same time last year it was roughly $5.5 billion. So we are seeing that, hey, analysts are expecting a nice growth in both the PC market, as we are seeing kind of these PC shipments turn around, but more importantly, like I mentioned, is the excitement and the revenue growth from the MI300. Now, if we take a closer look at the guidance AMD shared for us during their most recent earnings, which was about 3 months ago, they mentioned that they expect revenue to be roughly $6.1 billion plus or minus $300 million. And this was actually pretty shocking in my opinion, because this is very, very similar to what analysts expect. And there's a difference here, right? Because AMD, when they report earnings, they reported earnings about 3 months ago when they gave guidance. Now, analysts, they continue to increase and upside the revenue expectations for AMD. So I actually thought that the expectation from Wall Street will be a lot higher than what AMD presented, but it's not. It's pretty much a one-to-one basis here. So that's pretty interesting. I guess the overall market doesn't see too much growth in some of the solutions that AMD has. And maybe this is where I do believe analysts might be underestimating. In my opinion, I do believe AMD has the opportunity to beat these expectations. Now, I'm going to talk a closer look at that. Even though they might be expectations, it might not be what investors expect, and that's going to be a whole different story. But right now, we can see that 6.1 billion is what both AMD expects and what analysts expect for total revenue. So now I want to kind of take a closer look at the markets AMD operates. And for those that are not familiar, AMD operates in 4 main markets. First is the client market, and these are the chips that go into your consumer products like your laptop and your desktop. Then they have the server markets, which obviously go into data centers. Then they have the embedded market, which go into things like automotive and other solutions with FPGAs. And finally, they have the semi-custom, which usually include gaming products for like the PlayStation and the Xbox. So Lisa Su, during the most recent earnings, mentioned that, hey, looking at the next couple of quarters, quarters, they expect strong growth in data center business, driven by both their EPYC and Instinct processors. The EPYC is their server CPUs, the Instincts are their GPUs like the MI300X. They do mention that this growth will be partially offset by softening demand in their embedded business, which is the FPGA, and lower semi-custom revenue, which is the gaming market, given where we are in the console cycle. And for those that are not familiar, I think we are in like what, year 3 and year 4 of the PlayStation and the new Xbox. So normally at this time it starts to slow down, right? Not everybody who wanted them already purchased it. So now that market starts to get smaller and smaller. More importantly, though, they do see that the PC market returns to seasonal pattern, and they believe that they are well positioned to gain profitable share in the premium and commercial portions of the market based on the strength of the product offering. So we can see they have two strengths right now, the data centers and the client market. They have two weaknesses, the gaming and the embedded market. Now, if we kind of fast forward into last week where Intel just reported earnings, they kind of gave us a great insight of what to expect in quarter 4 for AMD. So Intel actually beat on revenue and earnings per share expectations, both on their end and analyst expectations as well. And the main reason for the growth was the growth in the client and server market that saw a nice sequential boost. So right off the bat, if Intel is seeing kind of this growth here, and at the moment, we do believe that AMD has leadership technology in both the server and maybe the client market, then we should expect AMD to actually see those results of strong data center and strong client market. Now, the reason Intel fell about 10% after reporting earnings is their guidance was extremely weak. And the reason guidance was extremely weak was because of their embedded market, a market that AMD also owns. One thing that AMD investors might kind of be excited about is when Pat, the CEO of Intel, talked about their guidance. They did mention that they expect a slight sub-seasonal first quarter from their core product business. And there could be two things happening here, right? Just the overall market might not be correcting itself as quickly as many thought it would, or Intel is facing a lot more competitive pressure in their core products, which are the client market and the server market, which means that hopefully AMD is taking market share in both the client CPU and the data center server CPU as well. Now, I think what investors are more curious about is going to be the MI300X. But before we go there, guys, if you are enjoying the episode, make sure to hit the thumbs up. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, as it definitely helps support the channel. If you want to support a little bit more, check out my special offer at fool.com/Jose. So when we took a closer look at the MI300 during the last earnings call, AMD mentions that they expect roughly $400 million in the fourth quarter and exceed $2 billion in 2024 as revenue ramps throughout the year. So here we can see that AMD kind of gave us a minimum of $2 billion for the MI300X for 2024. Now, there's a lot of excitement, and I do believe this is where investors need to keep their eye out. I do believe AMD is going to easily surpass that, and investors are going to be looking for that guidance. Hey, did they update their guidance? Did they get more capacity? As this is more of a capacity issue right now, where AMD needs to make sure they have enough supply to kind of to be able to supply the demand that they're seeing right now. So investors are going to be very curious about this $2 billion. We have heard about analysts expecting somewhere about $4 billion, maybe $6 billion in 2024. And this is where I believe there is going to be a double-edged sword for AMD. AMD, in my opinion, needs to really beat these expectations. They need to come out and say, hey, look, we mentioned $2 billion last quarter, but what we really meant to say was at least $4 billion. In my opinion, and I could be completely wrong, if AMD does not increase the expectations of their data center GPU in this upcoming earnings call, I think it can be a very bad time for AMD stock. Now, when it comes to AI accelerators, we actually got some great news from Intel. So Intel did mention that their accelerated pipeline for 2024 grew double digits sequentially in quarter 4 and is now well above $2 billion and growing. And they recently increased their supply for both Gaudi 2 and Gaudi 3 to support the growing customer demand. So Intel, who pretty much to some extent doesn't really have a true product like the MI300X, MI300X, which should be volume shipping this quarter in quarter one of 2024, we are seeing that Intel is still getting breadcrumbs here. So I do believe this can kind of showcase that, hey, look, if Intel's doing this well in the AI accelerated program, imagine how well AMD is doing because they actually have a new product that is just being released and they most likely have some decent volume productions. So again, I do believe at the end of the day, what's really going to be expected is for AMD to blow that $2 billion for 2024 out of the waters. Now, if we take a closer look at what analysts are expecting for AMD for the upcoming quarter, for quarter one, they do expect AMD to guide at roughly $5.8 billion for the quarter one and roughly $27 billion for the full year of 2024. Now, again, these expectations, in my opinion, need to be completely blown by AMD for the stock price reaction to at least be flat, in my opinion. For the stock price to really jump up a nice amount, these expectations need to go way and way above the water. If unfortunately AMD just meets expectations for the full year and for the current and for the upcoming quarter, which will be quarter one, then I personally believe, and again, I could be wrong, that AMD stock price can have a very, very bad day. And this is something I'm going to be keeping a closer eye on. Like you guys know, AMD is my number two position. I'm super excited about this overall company. But I do believe right now, with this company sitting at a PE ratio forward in the next 12 months of roughly 45, they need to completely blow out the waters. Because for a company to be valued right now in forward PE ratio at those numbers is because analysts and investors are expecting huge growth levels. At the moment, though, I have no intentions of selling AMD stocks because I do believe in the long term there's great opportunity for this company. At the same time, at these levels, these are not values where I would go and buy AMD stock because there's too much risk in my opinion based on the reward and outperformance that this stock can provide. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.